Space is not just a vacuum. It is a canvas for ambition, for innovation, and increasingly, for conflict. Since the beginning of recorded history, humans have looked up at the stars with awe. The heavens were once seen as the domain of gods, unreachable, untouchable, sacred. But in the 20th century, the boundary between Earth and the cosmos was broken. And with that boundary came a new kind of power, one that could benefit billions or devastate us all. The dawn of the space age was defined by human ingenuity and fierce rivalry. The Soviet Union sent the first satellite, Sputnik, into orbit in 1957. The United States answered with the Mercury and Apollo missions, culminating in the moon landing in 1969. These achievements were driven by science, but also by fear, by politics, and by military calculations. Even the earliest satellites were part of a quiet strategic game. Surveillance, reconnaissance, missile warning. Space quickly became the ultimate high ground. And once a domain is militarily useful, it becomes militarily contested. That's human nature. The 1967 Outer Space Treaty was a milestone. It declared that space belongs to all humankind, that no nation could claim sovereignty over the moon or other celestial bodies. It banned weapons of mass destruction in orbit and prohibited placing nuclear arms on the moon. But the treaty, as bold as it was for its time, left a vacuum of its own. It didn't ban conventional weapons in space. It didn't prevent nations from attacking each other's satellites. It didn't, and perhaps couldn't, anticipate the kinds of technological advancements we now see unfolding. Satellites capable of interfering with others, robotic arms that can push or grab, cyber attacks delivered from orbit, and direct ascent missiles that can destroy space infrastructure in seconds. And it certainly didn't anticipate a future where not just governments, but private corporations and billionaires would launch hundreds of satellites a month. Today, the Outer Space Treaty is respected in name, but strained in practice. Its moral weight is still powerful, but its legal precision is not enough to prevent conflict. In 2007, China shocked the world. It launched a missile that struck and destroyed one of its own weather satellites. The test created a cloud of debris that endures to this day. Over 3,000 trackable fragments hurtling through orbit at lethal speeds. In 2019, India conducted a similar test. The United States and Russia have both demonstrated comparable capabilities. These events made one thing clear. The ability to destroy satellites is no longer theoretical. It's operational, and it's spreading. But not all space weapons look like missiles. Some are stealthier, satellites designed to approach others, capable of jamming signals or capturing images of sensitive technology. Others may use electronic warfare to blind sensors, disrupt command links, or distort data. And some threats are entirely invisible. Attacks launched through cyberspace to hack satellite systems from thousands of miles away. The modern space arsenal is diverse, deniable, and dangerously unregulated. Satellites are the beating heart of the modern world. They enable GPS and navigation. They connect cell towers and internet networks across continents. They monitor weather, predict hurricanes, track wildfires, and support disaster relief. They help farmers grow food more efficiently, allow scientists to track climate change, and power global finance by synchronizing transactions to the millisecond. And of course, they are critical to military operations, targeting, surveillance, missile warning, battlefield coordination. Without satellites, modern armed forces would be functionally blind. That's what makes them such tempting targets. If a major satellite network were disabled, whether by accident, cyber attack, or missile, the consequences would cascade across the globe. civilians would suffer first. The economic fallout could rival that of a world war. Space is no longer a separate domain. It is embedded in every layer of life on Earth. As of today, more than 80 countries have some form of space program, but the power is not evenly distributed. The United States, China, and Russia dominate both space exploration and space-based military capabilities. Emerging powers like India, Japan, and the European Union are catching up quickly. And then there are commercial giants. Companies like SpaceX, Blue Origin, OneWeb, and Amazon's Project Kuiper, deploying vast satellite constellations that now rival entire national programs. But for smaller nations, and especially those in the global south, space remains a shared commons, not a battlefield. These nations rely on space services they do not control. If conflict disrupts orbital infrastructure, they suffer the most, despite having no role in the arms race. This raises critical questions of equity, representation, and justice. Who gets to write the rules? Who enforces them? And who pays the price when those rules are broken? So why hasn't the world agreed on new rules? Because regulation requires trust, and trust is in short supply. Every nation fears that disarmament will make it vulnerable, that if it steps back, others will take advantage. This is the essence of the security dilemma, a cycle in which defensive actions are seen as offensive by others, prompting more arms, more paranoia, more instability. Efforts have been made. The prevention of an arms race in outer space, PAROS, initiative has been debated at the United Nations for decades. Russia and China have proposed treaties. The US has countered with calls for voluntary norms of behavior rather than legally binding bans. So far, no consensus has emerged. And meanwhile, the technology marches forward. But regulation is not impossible. The world has successfully negotiated arms control agreements before, even at the height of the Cold War. The Non-Proliferation Treaty, the Chemical Weapons Convention, and the Outer Space Treaty itself prove that international law can work when there is will and leadership. Here are some of the steps experts propose. A ban on destructive ASAT testing, like the one the US adopted in 2022, expanded globally. An international space traffic management system to track objects and prevent collisions. Transparency measures like pre-launch notifications and data sharing agreements. A new, updated space security treaty, one that defines prohibited behaviors, not just prohibited weapons. Greater inclusion of private space actors, whose operations now affect global stability. These won't be easy, but they are possible. At the heart of this debate is a moral question. What kind of species do we want to be in space? Do we bring our fears, our rivalries, and our weapons into orbit? Or do we rise above them, quite literally, and create something new? We have a choice. We can treat space as just another extension of Earth's conflicts, or we can see it as a proving ground for our ability to cooperate, to regulate, to respect, and to restrain ourselves. We can let competition spiral into chaos, or we can build a shared future, one that's peaceful, secure, and sustainable. This is more than a technical debate. It's a test of our maturity as a civilization. The next decade will define the next century. Right now, the number of satellites in orbit is doubling every few years. Mega constellations are being deployed at unprecedented speeds. National defense strategies increasingly include space-based assets. Artificial intelligence, automation, and cyber warfare are transforming how wars are fought, and space is not immune. We are entering an era where miscalculation or accident could start a conflict that no one can stop. We cannot afford to wait for a crisis to act. The time for rules is not after the first war in space. It is now.